Two fake HOA cops stormed my driveway, screaming my son damaged community property, when all he had was a tiny toolbox fixing his bike. That's the moment I stepped outside, and everything changed. It started on a quiet afternoon. My son was sitting in our driveway, fixing his old bike with a small toolbox beside him, focused, calm, harmless. Then two fake HOA cops marched up like they owned the place. Cheap uniforms, plastic badges. Confidence way bigger than their authority. They pointed at my kid and shouted, "Stop, you're damaging community property." Community property, the bike was ours, the driveway was ours, and my son was just tightening a loose bolt, but they didn't care about truth. They cared about power, and they thought they found an easy target. The moment I heard them accuse my son of something he didn't do, I stepped outside, calm, but ready, because they had no idea whose family they were messing with. The afternoon was peaceful, almost too peaceful, the kind of quiet that makes you let your guard down. Sunlight drifted across the driveway, warming the concrete where my son sat with his tiny toolbox open beside him. His old bike lay on its side, the back wheel spinning lazily as he tightened a bolt with the focus only kids have. Grease smudged his fingers, a streak of dirt brushed across his cheek, but he didn't care. He loved fixing things. It made him feel capable, independent, strong. I watched from inside the house for a moment, proud of him. It felt like a rare slice of normal life. Then the peace broke. Two shadows stretched across the driveway, long, sharp, and arrogant. Before I even heard their voices, I felt the shift in the air, the tone, the hostility. Two men in cheap, mismatched uniforms marched up with the confidence of real officers, but nothing about them felt real. Their badges looked like they came from a Halloween store. Their belts were too loose, their shirts wrinkled, but the look in their eyes, that part was real. That was the look of men hungry for control. Before my son could even look up, one of them barked, loud enough for the whole street to hear, "Stop! You're damaging community property." My son froze, confused, his small hands still gripping the tool. He blinked at them, unsure whether to respond, unsure if he had done something wrong. The innocence on his face only made their accusation louder, uglier, more absurd. Community property, the bike was ours, the driveway was ours. And no part of the neighborhood belonged to these men, but they stood there like conquerors who found a reason to pick a fight. Like they had been waiting for someone small enough, quiet enough, young enough, to bully. One of them leaned in closer, acting like he was inspecting a crime scene. He tapped his little plastic badge as if that made him powerful. "This activity violates HOA protocol," he announced, his voice dripping with the kind of fake authority that only fools believe in. A second later, he pointed at my son's toolbox. Tampering with community equipment, he muttered loudly, making sure the neighbors could hear, "Looks intentional." Intentional, he was tightening a bolt, but the fake cops didn't care about truth. They cared about an audience. Neighbors peeked from behind blinds. Someone lifted a phone to record. Whispers moved through the air like static, and my son sat there, shrinking, scared, suddenly feeling small in his own home. That was the exact moment something inside me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. A sharp, cold clarity that spreads through your body when someone crosses a line they should have never approached. I stepped outside, not rushing, not shouting, just walking with the calm that comes when you know exactly what you're about to do and exactly how much these men are about to regret their choices. They didn't see me at first. They were too busy towering over a kid, pretending their fake badges meant something. But the moment my footsteps hit the driveway, the moment my shadow crossed theirs, their confidence flickered, because now it wasn't a child they were facing, it was a father, and even they could feel how fast this situation was about to shift. The moment I stepped onto the driveway, everything changed. The fake cops straightened up, their chests puffing out as if posture could hide insecurity, but it was already too late. Their act was slipping. The badges on their shirts glinted under the sun, cheap metal that reflected their cheap authority. My son stood behind them now, gripping his wrench like a lifeline. His eyes searched my face, waiting for reassurance, not the kind spoken in words, but the kind shown through presence. I gave him a single nod. His shoulders relaxed. He knew he was safe. The air thickened with tension. One of the fake officers shifted his weight, suddenly unsure of how to hold himself. He glanced around the neighborhood, hoping for support, but the neighbors weren't backing him. They were watching silent, curious recording. Their phones pointed, catching every second of this unfolding disaster. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Only the faint sound of a distant lawn mower hummed in the background. These men wanted a reaction. They expected anger. They expected fear. They expected resistance they could twist into an excuse. Instead, they got calm. Calm was more dangerous than shouting. Calm meant control. Calm meant confidence. Calm meant they had miscalculated. A flicker of realization crossed their faces, a tiny, nervous shift in their eyes. They weren't standing in front of someone who feared authority. They were standing in front of someone who recognized fake authority instantly and was prepared to dismantle it piece by piece. The taller one adjusted his badge, as if fixing it would make it real. The shorter one stepped back half a foot, his shoes scraping on the concrete. Sweat began to bead on his forehead even though the breeze was cool. My son, still frozen, watched them like he was seeing villains in a movie, the kind that crumble once the real hero appears. The taller man tried to hold on to the illusion of control, but his hands betrayed him. They trembled barely, but enough for the neighbors to notice, enough for the cameras to pick up, enough for the moment to feel like a slow unraveling of everything they came here pretending to be. The cheap radio on his belt chirped with static, the kind you hear from toy walkie-talkies, not real law enforcement gear. Someone in the small crowd let out a soft, amused breath. The fake cop's jaw tightened. He knew the performance was collapsing, and still, I said nothing. Silence became a force of its own, pushing down on them, stripping them of the authority they never had. Every second they stood there with me saying nothing made them look smaller, weaker, more exposed. My son shifted behind me, the metal of his wrench clinking softly against the toolbox. That sound, just a simple sound, was enough to send another wave of panic across the fake cops' faces. Because they knew what everyone else knew. He wasn't damaging anything. He wasn't breaking rules. He was a kid repairing his own bike in his own driveway. Their accusation was crumbling and they felt it. The taller one's confidence drained first. His shoulders sagged. His gaze darted between me, the neighbors, and the camera phones. Panic crawled across his features like a shadow he couldn't outrun. The shorter one swallowed hard, his throat bobbing in a nervous, jerky motion. This was the moment their performance started to die, and all I had done was step outside. What they didn't know not yet was that the real reason they were trembling had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with the person who was about to walk out behind me, someone they were absolutely not prepared to face. Someone whose presence would destroy whatever was left of their manufactured power. Someone they would regret provoking for the rest of their lives. The shift in the air was subtle at first, the kind of change you feel before you see. My son sensed it too. His grip on the wrench loosened. His eyes drifted past my shoulder, widening with relief, and the fake cops. They felt it before they understood it. A presence stepped into the doorway behind me, calm, heavy, controlled. The kind of presence that doesn't just enter a space. It claims it. My son's father walked out, wiping grease from his hands with the same ease a soldier wipes dust from old memories. He wasn't wearing a uniform. He wasn't carrying a weapon. He didn't need to. Power radiated from him in quiet waves, the kind that comes from a life spent mastering danger rather than performing authority. A Navy SEAL doesn't announce himself. He doesn't posture. He doesn't pretend. He simply exists, and the world adjusts. The moment he stepped onto the driveway, the fake cops straightened like marionettes pulled by invisible strings. Their spines stiffened. Their bravado evaporated. Something ancient in their instincts recognized the imbalance of power and warned them to retreat. But pride is a stubborn, foolish thing, and they stayed. The taller one attempted to regain composure, but the tremor in his hand betrayed him. The shorter one took a half step back, not enough to look like he was fleeing, but enough to signal that he wanted to. Our neighbors sensed the shift too. Their whispers fell silent, cameras lifted higher, every lens locked onto the moment, hungry for the crack in the performance. My son's father didn't rush. He didn't glare. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stood beside me, arms crossed, observing the two men who had come to intimidate a child. His expression was unreadable, but his presence spoke louder than any threat could. The fake cop's confidence shattered fully now. They tried to hold on to scraps of authority, but every second in front of him made that authority look smaller and faker. The taller one's eyes flicked toward the exit, the street, the sidewalk, anywhere but here. His breath grew uneven. His jaw worked furiously, grinding teeth behind the illusion he'd tried so hard to maintain. The shorter one made the mistake of speaking. His voice cracked as he tried to explain their accusation: community property damage, HOA protocol, suspicious activity, but the words sounded ridiculous even to him. The more he talked, the clearer it became that there was no case, no rule, no justification. They had come for power. What they found was accountability. My son's father didn't interrupt, he didn't challenge, he didn't humiliate them, he simply listened, and that was worse. Because silence, real silence, forces truth to collapse under its own weight. The shorter man's words faded, swallowed by an embarrassment he could no longer escape. His face flushed a deep red. His hands fumbled at the fake badge on his chest like he wished he could rip it off and run away from what it represented. The taller one finally broke. His posture folded, his confidence dripped away. His eyes shifted downward, avoiding every phone, every stare, every ounce of shame collecting around them. He muttered something about misunderstanding, something about leaving the situation to the HOA board, empty words, excuses, attempts to retreat without admitting defeat. But defeat had already happened. They had been stripped of their performance, unmasked without anyone touching them, exposed by nothing more than truth and presence. In the final moment, both men stepped backward slowly, shakily, like the ground beneath them had become unstable. Their boots scraped the concrete as they retreated the same way cowards always retreat, pretending it was their choice. They reached the sidewalk. Then the taller one stumbled, not tripped, not slipped. Stumbled, the clumsy, human kind of stumble that happens when fear spreads too deep into your bones. Gasps erupted from the neighbors. Cameras zoomed in. The shorter man rushed to steady him, but his hand shook so badly he nearly missed. Together, the two of them lurched away, not walking, not marching, but crawling back to dignity, one broken step at a time. They didn't speak again. They didn't look back. They didn't dare, and my son, he stood taller than I'd ever seen him. The wrench hung loose at his side, but the fear was gone. In its place was something stronger, the realization that no fake authority could take away his voice, his safety, or his home. He looked up at us. We nodded. The moment sealed itself in his memory, etched permanent. The driveway felt peaceful again. The sunlight returned. The air softened, but it wasn't the same peace as before. This peace was earned, the kind that stays, because some people rely on badges, costumes, and threats to feel powerful. But real power doesn't need to shout. Real power doesn't need to pretend. Real power shows up quietly and changes everything. And that day, two fake cops learned a lesson they will never forget. You don't intimidate a child. You don't lie about community property. You don't fake authority on someone else's land, and you absolutely don't challenge a family guarded by a Navy SEAL. Not unless you're prepared to crawl home afterward. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more videos. Thank you.